How terrifying was Hun Tiandi's first battle after becoming a Dou Di. Gu Yuan turned and fled, and even Zhu Kuan was beaten so badly that dragon scales flew everywhere. In the original story of Battle Through the Heavens, this battle took place after the fight for Tu Shi ancient god's legacy came to an end. Hun Tiandi swallowed the embryonic D pill and used the blood of countless living beings across Central Plains as a sacrifice to refine himself. By force, he broke through into the Dou Di realm, becoming the first newly ascended Dou Di on the Dou Qi continent after Tu Shi ancient god. At that time, Gu Yuan and Zhu Kuan were both peak 9-star Dou Sheng experts. They stood at the very ceiling of the continent's fighting power. Yet when Hun Tiandi appeared above the Tianfu alliance, stepping on a blood lotus, the pressure released from his blood-stained white robe swept across thousands of miles. Every Dou Sheng in the allied army instantly found it hard to breathe. The Dou Qi inside their bodies almost stopped flowing. Gu Yuan knew there was no way to retreat. He immediately activated the secret techniques of the Gu clan, pushing his fire-attributed Dou Qi to the limit. Joining hands with Lei Ying, Yan Jin, and the other Dou Sheng experts, he poured all their strength into the Great Protective Formation and launched a full-force attack at Hun Tiandi. That killing move was powerful enough to tear the sky apart, but in Hun Tiandi's eyes, it was nothing more than a child's trick. He did not even bother to raise his hand. With only a casual wave of his sleeve, the entire space suddenly froze. Gu Yuan's strongest strike collapsed on the spot. The protective formation shattered with a deafening crash, while Lei Ying, Yan Jin, and the others all spat blood and were sent flying backward. Gu Yuan's pupils shrank violently, his face filled with disbelief. He had never imagined that after 1,000 years of bitter cultivation, he would not even have the right to properly attack before a true Dou Di. Hun Tiandi's gaze turned cold. With a light flick of his finger, a blood-colored streak shot through the air. Its speed was so terrifying that Gu Yuan had no time to dodge. It struck him directly in the chest. Gu Yuan felt as though he had been hit by a mountain. His bones cracked, blood sprayed from his mouth, and his body fell from the sky like a kite with its string cut. He forced himself to endure the pain and stabilize his body, but only endless shock remained in his heart. The might of a Dou Di had actually reached such a terrifying level. Seeing this, Zhu Kuan was instantly enraged. As the Dragon Emperor of the ancient Void Dragon tribe, his physical body was unmatched. When had he ever suffered such humiliation? Zhu Kuan no longer held back. His body expanded violently, transforming into a 10,000-foot-long purple-gold dragon. His scales shone with dazzling light, and his dragon might surged through heaven and earth. A destructive beam gathered in his mouth. Carrying the momentum of mutual destruction, he blasted it straight toward Hun Tiandi. But Hun Tiandi showed no fear at all. Instead, a cruel smile appeared on his face. He even said that he happened to need a mount, and Zhu Kuan was just right for the role. His figure flashed, and in an instant, he appeared above Zhu Kuan's dragon body. Then he lightly stomped his foot. Power filled with the laws of heaven and earth erupted violently. Zhu Kuan's hard purple-gold dragon scales shattered in large patches, and dragon blood poured down like a waterfall. Zhu Kuan could not bear the intense pain. He struggled madly, and his sky-shaking dragon roar tore through the clouds. His enormous dragon body then crashed heavily into the earth. Throughout the entire confrontation, Hun Tiandi had never even used his full strength. Yet he had completely crushed two peak 9-star Dou Sheng experts with absolute power. This battle fully proved the iron rule that beneath a Dou Di, all were ants. It was not that Hun Tiandi lacked the power to kill them. He was deliberately leaving them alive. He wanted them to personally witness the Gu clan and the ancient Void Dragon tribe walk step by step toward destruction. He wanted to enjoy the supreme pleasure of controlling everything. Hun Tiandi smiled and said, "Let everything end here. I do not like the name Central Plains. This land should simply be destroyed." As he spoke, he waved his hand. In an instant, the blood clouds covering the entire Central Plains began to churn wildly. Violent energy gathered rapidly within them. In the blink of an eye, countless blood-red bolts of lightning flashed inside the clouds. With thunderous explosions, those blood-colored lightning bolts, filled with destructive power, poured down toward the land below. The entire Central Plains trembled at once. The ground cracked open. Wherever the blood lightning descended, even those hiding deep underground were shaken apart by the terrifying shockwaves. Around the Tianfu Alliance, without the protection of the defensive barrier, millions, even tens of millions of people, were exposed beneath the blood lightning. Their bodies burst apart one after another. In an instant, the area around the Alliance was swallowed by a thick sea of blood. Countless people fled madly toward the Alliance headquarters. The scene was truly like the arrival of the apocalypse. Gu Yuan's eyes nearly split apart as he watched everything unfold. He roared in fury. Hun Tiandi threw his head back and laughed wildly amid the blood lightning. He looked like a demon who had walked out of a land of slaughter. Gu Yuan shouted in a hoarse voice, ordering the army to retreat and defend. Under the descent of the blood lightning, the Allied forces suffered devastating casualties. No one knew how many experts had died within it. At this moment, they could only shrink their defensive line and resist with everything they had left. Kaylin watched the sea of blood filling her vision and could not help biting her lip. Even someone as strong as her felt despair in the face of such a situation. She held Xiao Xiao tightly in her arms, refusing to let her see the bloody slaughter outside. "Mother, will father appear?" Xiao Xiao leaned her little face against Kaylin's shoulder, her small body trembling lightly. Kaylin gently patted Xiao Xiao's back and softly said, "Be good, Xiao Xiao. Your father will definitely appear. He still has to come and protect you." Yet the moment her words fell, she suddenly felt an extremely terrifying power erupt from Xiao Xiao's body. In a single instant, that power surpassed even her own. At the same time, Xiao Zhan, Xiao Ding, Xiao Li, and the others nearby suddenly grew slightly taller. Their auras also began to surge wildly. The power of their bloodline had been awakened. "The Dou Di bloodline!" Gu Yuan shouted when he saw this. "Hold on! Xiao Yan has successfully broken through to the Dou Di realm." When Kaylin heard those words, tears of joy immediately filled her eyes. Her heart was filled with pride. Along the journey they had walked together, without even realizing it, the young man who once needed her help had grown into someone who could now shield her from wind and rain. He had become someone she could rely on. Just as Medusa was overwhelmed with emotion, layers of dazzling flames suddenly surged out of the empty space. The flames slowly spread open, transforming into an enormous fiery barrier that covered a radius of 100,000 miles around the Tianfu Alliance. The blood lightning slammed fiercely against the flame barrier, but it no longer carried the unstoppable power from before. Instead, as the flames rolled and burned, the lightning was reduced to nothingness. The boundless sea of fire surged across the sky. In the end, it condensed into a figure completely wrapped in brilliant flames. When that fiery figure appeared, even Gu Yuan and the others showed expressions of wild joy, as though they had survived a catastrophe. "Xiao Yan, we have already done everything we can. From here on, we can only rely on you." "It's Alliance Chief Xiao Yan. The Alliance Chief has come out of seclusion. We're saved." The sudden protection of the flames caused everyone who had been fleeing in panic to stop. Countless gazes turned toward the sky, finally freezing on that familiar figure standing within the dazzling fire. In that instant, almost everyone's face was filled with excitement and joy. Deafening cheers echoed across heaven and earth. Many people knelt on the ground in excitement. After sinking into despair, this sudden hope made tears of joy stream down their still frightened faces. Suner was also overcome with emotion. She forcefully suppressed the feelings surging inside her, and stared without blinking at Xiao Yan in the sky. The mist rising in her eyes made his figure appear slightly blurred. Since they were young, she had entrusted her heart to this man. Many people had once failed to understand her choice, but only she knew clearly that her choice had never been wrong. Xiao Yan was the one truly worthy of her trust. Outside the flame barrier, many Hun clan experts saw that familiar face and could not help crying out in shock. "Is that Xiao Yan?" Clearly, they had never expected that after only half a year, Xiao Yan would become terrifying to such a degree. A Dou Di. Hun Tiandi stood atop the blood lotus. At this moment, his blood-red eyes trembled violently. After a long while, he finally could not help muttering, "How is this possible?" It was no wonder Hun Tiandi lost his composure so suddenly. To reach this step, he had paid an enormous price. But just when he finally succeeded, he saw someone else reach the same realm as him. How could he possibly accept that so easily? Especially when this person had been nothing more than an ant he could crush at will just 1 year ago. The imbalance in his heart instantly reached its peak. The flames gradually scattered, revealing a young man dressed in black. He raised his head, looked at the somewhat shaken Hun Tiandi, and smiled faintly. This world does not belong to you alone. You are not the only one who can step into the Dou Di realm. Xiao Yan stood quietly in the sky. There was not the slightest Dou Qi fluctuation around him. He looked completely ordinary, but only true experts could sense the unimaginable power hidden within his lean body. That power was enough to destroy heaven and earth. Hun Tiandi carefully examined Xiao Yan. Then he said, "You have the aura of Tu Shi ancient god on you." Xiao Yan smiled and replied, "I was lucky enough to obtain the ancient god's inheritance, that's all." Hearing this, Hun Tiandi's face twitched violently. Rage surged in his heart. Void-devouring flame. That cursed void-devouring flame must have known about the ancient god's inheritance, yet it had never told him. Xiao Yan glanced calmly at Hun Tiandi, then swept his gaze across the nearly shattered land below. He reached out his hand, and a dazzling ray of light descended upon Zhu Kuan, who had been kicked down from the sky by Hun Tiandi. Under the glow of that light, the hideous wounds on Zhu Kuan's body rapidly healed. His enormous dragon body also transformed back into human form. His face was still somewhat pale, and he smiled bitterly at Xiao Yan. "You finally came out. If you had been any later, everyone here would have been slaughtered by that fellow." Xiao Yan replied in a gentle voice, "Senior Zhu Kuan, rest for a while." Although Xiao Yan's voice was calm, Zhu Kuan could sense the hidden pressure within it. That pressure seemed to stand above heaven and earth. Under such might, even he had no choice but to lower his head. He nodded and said, "We will defend against the Hun clan army. Hun Tiandi is yours to deal with. Only a Dou Di can fight another Dou Di." Xiao Yan smiled and nodded. His gaze swept across the ground below, and when he saw the heavy casualties among the allied army, he said softly, "Your methods are truly ruthless. To complete the final step of the embryonic D-pill, you actually caused such slaughter. The victor is king, and the loser is a bandit. Who cares about the process?" Hun Tiandi sneered as he stared at Xiao Yan. "Tomorrow will be the decisive battle between our two sides. If you lose, not a single living being in your alliance will be spared." Xiao Yan said calmly, "And if you lose, I will wipe out the Hun clan completely." He had long hated the Hun clan to the bone. Given the chance, he would never pretend to be merciful. Those who deserved death would be killed. Hun Tiandi threw his head back and laughed. "Good. Then today, let me see whether my Hun clan becomes king, or your alliance is destroyed." Xiao Yan answered with a furious roar. "I'll fight you to the end."